YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back, grading the most recent NFL free agency signings. Kind of been a buildup of a bunch of them since the last week or so, but we're going to grade them right here. We have a bunch of these videos grading pretty much all the free agency signings on the channel. We may have to grade them on Twitter going forward because we are about to get into a lot of NFL draft content here moving forward. So that's a month away. Really excited about that. So please subscribe to the channel. Check out all those videos that we have a ton on the channel. Follow our Twitter for breaking news, constant talk on the NFL draft prospects, anything you can think of there, follow that. And check out walkthemock.com. Use code GOATHOUSE if you're going to sign up. Any link that you need will be in the comments. So, yeah, check it out. And then here's our Twitter. Talking about draft a lot recently. It's officially draft season. Kind of already was, but now things are starting to really heat up. So make sure you follow our Twitter for that. We'll be covering, the draft, pick by pick with my thoughts on there as well. So it's a must follow. This was last week. This one happened actually, I think, while I was recording the last grade video. T.Y. Hilton to the Colts, 1 year, $8 million. I really didn't think he was going to go back. He's from the beginning of free agency, you start to sit around and, not much going on, and he's still available, and you start to think, okay, yeah, he's probably going back. So at that point, we kind of thought that. But really, this ends up being a little better contract than when we first saw it because we first see 1 year, $10 million. That ends up being max. There's no signing bonus. That's good. So that's all solid. The Colts had cap space and, maybe a little more than I projected based on where the market was going. But I think in terms of T.Y. Hilton's value, sure, it's around that range. I really don't have a problem with the value or anything like that. Still a solid receiver. I thought the Colts would go for just a true, legit number one. It was kind of almost a go big or go home scenario, I thought, because they have receivers. I think they have a pretty deep room. They just don't have, that. And, I'm on board with, you need multiple number ones. I think Pittman could be a number one. In that playoff game, though, where they really almost they kind of did outplay the Bills in a way. They just could not execute in the big moments. I think they needed a big-time playmaker at the receiver position. So, did they need, he was their number 3 receiver last year. So, I don't know. I think they would kind of go bigger. So, a little disappointed in that way. But I'll give it a B. It's a solid contract. If they get him a little cheaper, at least you got somebody because starting to run out of receiver options. But I don't know if they were ever in on the big time guys. Again, I thought they had enough receivers that they would just go for the, go big or go home, whether it's early in the draft or signing a guy. So again, yeah, he played a lot less snaps last year per healthy game, I guess we could say, because he actually might have had more snaps than when he was hurt. But he was third in snaps for receivers on their team. So kind of surprised they brought him back a little bit. But as he started to sit there, you started to wonder, he probably can go back. But I'll give that one a B. Next, another receiver, DeSean Jackson to the Rams, 1 year, $4.5 million. It's a tough one too because I think it's a good fit with a Stafford type offense. You kind of need, again, good fit. You kind of needed a deep speed guy, even though I do think, Woods and Kupp kind of got it covered. I think they're all-around receivers, and they have Van Jefferson who's going to step up. Again, it's a solid fit. My problem with this is was this necessary? One of those guys that, you love his game, but, you almost think, is he going to, the best way to put this, is he going to play a whole season? You almost doubt that. Most people will highly doubt that. The Rams are unable to make many moves. Was this a spot to spend that 4.5, that extra wiggle room you had? Was this really necessary? Especially having those other receivers. You get rid of Michael Brockers to create a whole D-line to spend $4.5 million here. Like, I just don't know if again, the fit's solid, but it's just not the plan I expected for the Rams or, what I hope they do, we're going to do there. It's $4.5 million. It's not much for his talent, even though he does have injury concern. It is a good fit. So I'll give him a B-. I kind of bump it up because it is a good fit in the Stafford offense, but overall, I'm not really loving the plan. That's where you spend that extra wiggle room that you had. Not in love with that. I thought they were pretty much set at the receiver position, but not really elsewhere. Not everywhere else, I should say, because they're pretty damn good roster, pretty good team in some spots there. Interesting signing. Next, say another receiver, Sammy Watkins goes to the Ravens, 1 year, $5 million. The Ravens swung and missed. I don't know how big of a swing they took on a lot of those guys, but they were in on some players. I guess they offered the most for Juju. I don't think they were looking to overspend, though. They could be looking to draft. They're up in the air in terms of the first round of the draft. Could they go receiver? Could they go edge rusher? Orlando Brown replacement? Is he going to get traded? So it's a good team, very good team, dangerous team, but you start to look at those. They're pretty big holes, in my opinion. You still need a receiver one. It's just kind of just like another Hollywood Brown guy, out there. Watkins a little more polished, obviously. Another guy that has that injury concern. I think he played well in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. But other than that, injured last year. Even when he did play, he wasn't really producing as normal for the Chiefs and that Patrick Mahomes offense. So it kind of felt like they panicked a little bit. They did need to add somebody. I do think he's a good receiver. I'm just pretty much on the same page with DeSean Jackson signing here. They're still going to need to add another number one. I think their plan is, unless somebody drops to them, was not to take one in the first round. They were trying to get a guy in free agency because they wanted to focus on edge or offensive line in the first round of the draft. And so their plan didn't really work out. They kind of let the market settle, and it always is going to, every year it's going to backfire. It's going to backfire on teams, because you let the market settle, but then somebody's going to get the guys. Somebody's not going to get those guys that they waited for. You kind of sat around, did nothing for these guys that their price is going to drop, and they still miss. So not the offseason the Ravens wanted, that's for sure. But at least they got a talented receiver there. The Cardinals signed Malcolm Butler, the former Titans cornerback and Patriots cornerback. 1 year, $6 million. Yeah, this one's grown on me a lot. Malcolm Butler struggled early on last season. Pretty much the entire Titans defense did. I think a big piece of that is because the most important part of a defense, pass rush, was not there, and that just made everyone else's job easier. If the pass rush is there, harder. If the pass rush is there, it makes these guys' job easier. That's why pass rush is just so much more important than, corner, secondary, building that first, or spending more money there. But he actually started, even though there was still no pass rush later in the year, he played a lot better in the second half of the year. A lot better, a lot of man coverage, and it's very hard to play man coverage when there's no pass rush. Cardinals running that man coverage, he's going to play that, but it's going to be a lot easier because they have a pass rush. I guess as long as it's healthy, that's the key there, because J.J. Watt, Chandler Jones, but they have a number of other guys as well. But I like the fit. I think he plays a lot better here. This one's really growing on me. I'm giving this one an A. They still need another corner for sure. Because you could Malcolm Butler for Patrick Peterson. I think Patrick Peterson's probably overall a better corner, but Butler might be better fit. But are we going to sit here and say they're just as good or better corner-wise than last year? No, they're not. Overall, they're not. So they still got a little bit to do there. But I like that one. Again, growing on me, giving it an A. The Seahawks get Carlos Dunlap back, 2 years, $16.6 million, was about to be a $14 million, 14.1, I think exactly, $14.1 million cap hit before they cut him. So they cut him, and we kind of thought they can get him back, and they weren't doing that. You heard other teams were in on him, so they started to get a little scared because Seahawks defense was one of the very worst in football, and they got Dunlap, and they were actually playing quite well. Was it all Dunlap? I don't think so. I think other guys started to develop chemistry and get going. Jamal Adams got healthy. But I think a lot of it was because pass rush is the most important thing in football. It will make other guys' jobs easier if they're playing well. That's why it's just the most important bottom line. And so it was a huge piece, and he was playing extremely well. So they needed somebody back. Even with him, they kind of need more pass rush. Maybe a guy like Darrell Taylor could stay healthy and play well, because I liked him out of Tennessee. But they get this guy back. They get Dunlap back, $8.3 million per year for a pretty solid pass rusher. Solid pass rushers, getting at least $10 million. I know some got at a bargain price there, but yeah, I like this one. I'll give it an A+, actually. I was going to give it an A, but he was so important to their team last year. They needed him back. For sure. And I think they got a pretty good price. I think 2 years is good, too. I think I like 2 years for sure. And, I think 3 would have been too lengthy because he was starting, it felt like not really decline, but he was starting to disappoint a little bit with the Bengals. And then he would play well with the Seahawks. So if you sign him too long-term, which guy you're going to get is going to drop off pretty quickly. But it is a guy, again, that made your defense better. and somebody that you know is a fit and you really looks like you need. So I think 2 years is perfect for him. So I give it an A+. Then Jaron Reed, Seahawks. So on the bad side of the Seahawks, I don't like getting rid of Jaron Reed. I think Jaron Reed's a heck of a ball player. A couple years ago, he produced at a very high level. And next year, he started it with a somewhat lengthy suspension. I think that threw him off a little bit, but when he came back in, when he was playing last year, as well, you can start to kind of see him get back on track, playing high level. I think in big games and big moments, that's where I really noticed him, watching, Seahawks games. So stops the run, gets after the quarterback, really good at getting interior pressure. I still feel like he has upside. I still think there's, that was that 2018 season. Yeah, 2018 season. That's in there still. And I think the Seahawks will miss him. I really thought they were going to get a guy like Quentin Jefferson back because he was very important that year that they didn't really have Reed a lot. And Jefferson was big time for them. So I would feel okay if they got him back, but the Raiders ended up getting him for dirt cheap. I really thought the Seahawks would get him back. So it's a major loss for the Seahawks. The Chiefs get him. They're going to play him along with Chris Jones and Derek Nottie on the inside, paired back with Frank Clark, which is fantastic. 1 year, $7 million. I love Reed's game. I would have paid a lot more for him here. This is an easy A+. One of the better signings of all of free agency in terms of the 1 year deals. 1 year deals don't have a huge impact, so I'll call some of the lengthy impact players the biggest impact signings, but still a very good one here for the Chiefs. And then next up, Josh Reynolds, who was signed, it feels like some time ago, more than a week ago, and we're sitting here waiting for the contract. And Josh Reynolds was that sleeper I talked about in the offseason, leading up to free agency. Sleeper receiver. Felt like he really got better last year. That's with Jared Goff too. And I thought the Titans pulled a sneaky good signing. I'm kind of wondering the price. Is he going to get $8 million, $10 million at one point? I'm thinking, but we start to see receivers are getting a lot less, so maybe it's around the $6 million range. And then today it came out absolutely floored, stunned on this one. 1 year, $1.75 million. All those teams that need receivers, you see this young guy that's getting better, and that was with Jared Goff, as his quarterback. Who I'm not. I think Jared Goff's got some talent, so I'm not one of those people that just bash Jared Goff. But playing with a guy like Ryan Tannehill, and this offense, for an example, could be much better for him. I am just shocked with the price point here. I don't know how other teams didn't do this. I don't know how. Lions have Jared Goff. How the Lions paid some other receivers that are much lower talent level than him more money, not anything stupid money-wise, but, I don't know, the Packers, the Ravens, these teams did not beat this. It's just very confusing. It's an easy A+, one of the biggest steals of free agency. The Titans did some work, I thought, this offseason, building the pass rush up, and now they add Reynolds for pretty cheap. We're going to have a couple pages of lists of signings, rapid fire pretty much. Vinny Curry, 1 year, $1.3 million. Hopefully he stays healthy, but a good fit opposite of Carl Lawson, even if he's rotation. Titans got Kevin Johnson. They needed to add another, we're still waiting on Janoris Jenkins numbers. They definitely needed to add another corner, and they did that with Kevin Johnson. I don't know. Are they going to play him in the slot? Are they going to play him outside? It's in 2.25. You kind of wish this was a veteran minimum here. I know it's not big of a hit there. It's not super expensive. I don't know. It just doesn't really feel like, it feels like a little bit of a waste, even though he's a solid rotation guy that can play for you. I wish it was the veterans minimum there. I'm not really sure what their plan is. Janoris Jenkins. They have Fulton. Is Fulton going to play in the slot? Is Kevin Johnson going to play in the slot? Not really sure what the plan is there. Thought they could have found somebody that's equal or better, cheaper even, whether it's late free agency here or in the draft. Lions get Alex Anzalone, another familiar face for that Saints kind of coaching tree there. I think that's a pretty good signing. 1 year, 1.75, high motor linebacker. I think that's a pretty good value deal there. Patriots get Lawrence Guy. Yeah, another 4 years is confusing to me. I'm assuming, they're going to get out of that deal before the 4 years, but it's still a 4 year deal, whether you can get out of it for losing very little dead cap or having very little dead cap or not. It's still 4 years. You're still going to have something there. I thought he underperformed big time. I think they would kind of just revamp the defensive line, and kind of just maybe go younger out at the same time with the rest of the defense. So that was a little surprising. Go see Bucks Leonard Fournette, 1 year, $3.25 million. It's good value for how he played in the postseason, of course, playoff Lenny. he was a key piece to them. So overall, I gave it a B. I thought just, going back to the Bucs though, compared with the other running backs got, here, I thought maybe a little cheaper, but it still is kind of cheap. I kind of like the upside of this one. Cowboys, Terrell Basham, 2-year, $5.5 million. He was starting to get pretty good, at the end of the season for the Jets. Yeah, for the Jets. Now go to play for Dan Quinn and the Cowboys. I like the upside here, opposite of DeMarcus Lawrence. Usually Dan Quinn wants, DeMarcus Lawrence, hand the dirt, physical, defensive lineman. On the opposite side, sometimes he wants, a guy that has some familiarity with standing up a little more athletic. I think that's where Basham comes in. That's kind of, Dan Quinn kind of going with that, his vintage defense there. It didn't really work out the Falcons, so that's a different conversation. It's a little scary, I guess, but I like the upside here for the Cowboys. Chiefs get DeMarcus Robinson back, 1 year, 1.12, another A+. I thought somebody else would pay him a little more than that. They're probably worried he's just a speed guy. He's the only good, sometimes in the Chiefs offense. So they got him back. They kind of, needed a guy back like that. Very cheap deal, A+ there. More, there's another page after this. 49ers got Quan Williams, their slot corner. That's an A grade, 1 year, 2.37. It's a good deal there. I'm assuming you turn out a little more money elsewhere. Chargers got Kyler Fackrell. I think it's an A. They do need somebody better to start off the edge, because Joey Bosa is going to play more of a 3-4 end, I believe, in that new defense. So it's right now it's looking like Nwosu and Fackrell. Fackrell, to me, is a high-end rotation guy, which is good. 1 year, 1.5. That's fantastic. I just hope they can find a starter. So I'm a little starting, because they're not going to draft one early, I don't think, maybe. So then you're kind of, it might end up being Nwosu and Fackrell, as a starter. Still will be a good defense. A+ for the 49ers here. Jaquiski Tartt's taking that veterans benefits. It's, not quite the minimum, which would be $1.075 million. The veterans minimum benefit is $1.127 million. So I don't know where they come up with those numbers, but that's what, I see a load of these guys here with that number. Jaquiski Tartt, I thought was one of the big steals. I thought too. I thought somebody would like him to play strong safety for them. He's a solid safety. I'm surprised he was that cheap. It's a really good deal. Panthers get John Miller, cheap option. I think he's better than Pat Elflein, who they gave a little more money. So it was good that they got him back. A. Jaguars got Philip Dorsett. This was like on the first day of free agency. The second day, we just didn't hear the price point till recently on that minimum as well. I think that's a pretty solid receiver to have for Trevor Lawrence. We'll make assumptions here. I think it's actually, maybe like an Amari Rodgers for him. So he's going to be rotation too. So I think that's pretty good. Nothing to get that excited about. Bengals get Quentin Spain back. I always like Spain's game. I was surprised when the Titans moved on from a few years ago. They ended up upgrading at the guard, though they went pretty big at it. That's probably why. But I thought he was very good there. I thought he was good with the Bills. I was surprised when they cut him. And he's definitely, and then when he went to the Bengals, he helped out. He's way better than what they had. So they get him back for that benefit deal. That's fantastic there. That's an A+. Jets get Tevin Coleman. And this is kind of what I predicted them to value the running back around this range is that 49ers tree. And they get a 49ers guy, Tevin Coleman, LaMichael Pirine. I think they kind of pair together pretty well. 1 year, $2 million. We know he's a fit. Just got to stay healthy, but it's pretty good value. We know he's a fit. It's what they needed there to pair with Pirine. So I give that an A. Moving on to the last page here. Packers got Mercedes Lewis back. It's like a little surprising, somewhat confusing, I guess pretty important to them. I guess a mixture of blocking and ability to get open. 2 year, $8 million. The Packers just haven't done anything in free agency, and we kind of thought that could be, they got Aaron Jones back. That was big, but, in terms of additions, I guess. But we kind of thought that may be the case. But now you got some wiggle room. They restructured a little bit of deals. You got some wiggle room, and you're going to spend $4 million per year, roughly, by average, for a guy that's not really going to make or break your team. I'd rather just go out and spend. How come they couldn't spend the 1 point whatever million for Josh Reynolds and get, a defensive lineman or inside linebacker? It's just a little confusing to me. This one happened today. Tano passing, the Saints. Another one that's just confusing. He's an upside guy. It didn't. We thought that going into when Spagnuolo came in with the Chiefs, it didn't really work out. But maybe he can click with the Saints defense. I think he fits. Sure, it just doesn't make much sense. The Saints, our team, they got some wiggle room. They create some wiggle room. They get their own guys back, and then basically, they're looking to fill roster spots, but and that's what this is. You're filling a roster spot, with the guy for 2 years, $4.5 million. On top of that, there's like 3 void years on the deal, so they're going to be paying for him for 5 years. I would rather fill this spot with like a dirt cheap 7th round pick. It just doesn't make sense. You got a little wiggle room, and you're going to spend it here on a guy who's, he's nowhere near. Davenport's been, another upside guy. He's been maybe a little underwhelming, but he's going to be. I still think he's going to be better. He's got upside. So you're basically, you got a little wiggle room, and you're spending 2 years on this guy, but you're paying him for 5 years just to back him up. Fill these spots with draft picks. Trade back, get more draft picks, fill these spots. They need starters in other spots, and with that little wiggle room, you're going to have to find under-the-radar guys that can start, for you at linebacker, at, opposite corner, Marshawn Lattimore, at receiver. I mean, are you kidding me? So it just doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense to me. Falcons, Fabian Moreau. I think he still got some upside. You start to get a little concerned with the upside because it didn't really work out in the Rivera defense, but not a whole much reps chances, I guess. Again, still has upside. Could play opposite A.J. Terrell. Cheap deal. Dolphins going to land Roberts back. A little surprising because they got Benardrick McKinney to pair with Jerome Baker. They still get Roberts back, who was decent for them last year. He played a lot. He played a lot for them. Knows the defense. So, do they run more or just strictly like 3 off the ball guys now? You start to wonder, but cheap deal, knows the system. I give it an A. A couple signs for the Vikings getting their secondary going this offseason. They get Xavier Woods, 1 year, 2.25. I believe that's max, actually. I give that an A. Let's kind of take over for Anthony Harris, which I like the upside for him going from the Cowboys to, Mike Zimmer defense, playing with Harrison Smith. So I like that. This one I really like because I gave it an A+. As you can see, Alexander was a damn good slot corner for the Vikings in the past. I guess minor injuries is his concern. They pop up. But getting him for that minimum there around there, actually, that's a typo. I think it's that benefit minimum, that 1.127. It's in the same range. That's fantastic for him. They were better with him on the field. They didn't have him last year, but before that. Bills get Matt Breida, 1 year, $1.055 million. They needed this type of back, a little quicker, shiftier here because they, Singletary and Moss seem so similar. So I like this. They didn't want to draft another running back, invest more there, so they kind of add another guy that can compete. I wouldn't be surprised if he got he looked like their RB1 at times, not all the time. A little disappointing last year, though. Thought he would really get going with the Dolphins, so you kind of wonder there a little bit, but I still get him an A there. It's a good deal. Cowboys get DeMonte KZ from the Dan Quinn, get another familiar face. They needed a free safety. He's a pretty solid free safety, just constantly hurt. And it was between him and Malik Hooker. I probably would have leaned Hooker, but 2 guys that are kind of hurt. Gave it a B. It's a cheap deal. It does feel like Dan Quinn's just kind of taking control and getting his own guys. That didn't really work out in Atlanta. Even though I do still think he's a defensive mind, I just don't think he's a head coach. So that's why I think he can work in Dallas because he's just controlling the defense there. But I'm not in love with just kind of, they're choosing between Hooker and KZ. Again, I preferred Hooker, and they're just like, all right, Dan Quinn's just going to go with his guys. So that doesn't look great, but it's a talented ball player at the same time. So I gave it a B here. Again, more signings will happen. We'll have you covered on Twitter. We're about to, finishing up with some free agency content here. And then we're going to get going with our NFL draft. Even though we have some draft videos already on the channel, recent mock draft after those crazy trades. But a lot of it's officially draft month here. A lot of content on the way. Can't wait to cover it and cannot wait for my favorite days of the year of the NFL draft. So join us for that. Subscribe to the channel. Smash the like button. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. That is going to do it for this one, though. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.